Hey guys, welcome to another video. It has been some while since I actually shot a video. It's been a very busy spring. I hope you forgive us for that. I am hoping to get back into it as the summer goes by. Today we're going to do our summer update. That's coming up next. So as I said, it's been quite some time since I had a chance to actually shoot some video. I have footage, but just trying to stitch it all together and put it on YouTube, it's been quite hard. The spring was, very busy, especially with the food forest project and stuff. So today we're going to do a little walkabout, and I'm going to show you, what we've accomplished here so far this spring. And hopefully you'll see quite quickly why it is we haven't had a chance to do any of that. So last year I believe that we started in the greenhouse. This year I'm going to start down below. So one of the projects I started working on last year was a Czech log terrace to take care of a hillside that we had down here in front of the greenhouse. So hillsides are horrible. I hate them, but luckily we have lots of our own material here on this lot that we can use, especially deadfall and whatnot, to actually build up Czech log terraces. So last year I did about 25 feet, and this year I basically finished off the whole thing and tried to get another view on this side. So the whole thing now is finished, and a lot of it's been planted out with self-seeding annuals or perennials and strawberries. We got lots of borage here, and our sage this year is absolutely beautiful. We've also put in lots of walking onions, things that will require very little work, things that basically will help hold that soil together and will actually be able to harvest during the summer. So besides that, this is kind of one of the areas of the food forest, and we've actually planted out a couple of small nut trees down here right now. This is a hazel, so it's a hazel, then it's a nitrogen fixer, then it's an apple, then it's a nitrogen fixer. Then we have another hazel, nitrogen fixer, and then up above up here we have a small mulberry. It only gets around 8 feet high. And the idea down here is to keep most of these guys pruned so that although they'll provide some wind protection to the Czech log terrace area, they won't provide shade for the greenhouse, which we don't want. So that area is coming along nicely, and down here I've planted in some varieties of things that are kind of local wildflowers, and there's clover. I've thrown in claytonia, just everything, just to kind of see what happens. And there's broad beans and everything down here right now, because I didn't have any kind of plant nitrogen fixers, but the plan is that these are just going to be chopped and dropped later. We got breadseed poppies. There's a mishmash of everything down here, and I just want to see kind of what actually survives through the winter and what doesn't, and whatever survives and whatever doesn't. So the Czech log terraces are quite nice because you see every second terrace is actually a walkway, so I can actually walk all the way down here now, and this is just filled with mulch. So my plan is, it's great southern coverage here, is I'm going to plant wine caps in amongst the mulch on every other terrace where there's actually plantings. Our strawberry bed this year was kind of changed to more of a permaculture type setup. There's some lupins and borage and stuff in here. Some stuff would be chopped and dropped, but unfortunately we had a bit of a failure in our strawberry crop this year, which is unfortunate, but not much really I can do about that. Nothing really has changed with the compost area. That actually works really, really well. Let's move into the greenhouse. We can see where we are with the greenhouse. Overall this year, the greenhouse is doing good. You know, we picked our first fig the other day, and we have this one in here, which is an absolute monster. Tomatoes, they're doing good. I went with 3 different varieties this year. The Matina we've been harvesting for probably 3 to 4 weeks now, and overall they're doing pretty good. The Grenadero, they're more of a plum style kind of tomato, and you know, better for sauces and things like that. And they're actually just ripening. They're supposed to be a 65 day, but they're more like a 75-80 day, I think. But I'm quite pleased. The plants are healthy. They got fairly high yield. Each one of these guys are about 6 feet high, and they have a truss about every 1 foot, which is pretty nice compared to the Matina, which is probably around every 15 inches. So you get a little less off the Matina, but if you grow them higher, you get more. Our slicers, which are Paulbigs and Manitobas, oh correction, that's 4 varieties this year, are just coming in now, which is about right for these guys. I think that usually it's about then. Pepper plants, we only grow 1 variety of peppers now. We don't eat many peppers, so I like having a few hot peppers. This is Flaming Flare, and these do really well here. I have an elderberry, a golden elderberry, that actually I propagated from a cutting. That guy's going to go into the garden at some point. Not sure exactly when. Baby fig trees here, and cucumbers all the way up to the ridge beam. So those guys are doing amazingly well. In fact, so well that I've actually cut down 3 of them and replaced 3 of them with a type of a Charente style melon. Crops this year are doing good. We got our first sowing of brassicas already harvested in this one. Rutabagas are now planted in here. Carrots are going good. They're slow this year. It's been a pretty cold spring, but overall they're doing better now that the temperature's up. Our storage onions, they're all doing great. We've built fertility over the last few years, like immensely, by using, you know, chicken manure compost, which we get from our ladies over here in the coop. They're out strutting around this morning, and Mr. Alec is crowing. It's a beautiful thing to hear. We leave a lot of the garden pretty wild now. I only pretty much mow the walkways and stuff. You can see I just let it all grow, and it actually looks beautiful. Interestingly enough, I lost pretty much a lot of the grass on the cellar this year. There was a problem with voles, and they seem to have vacated since I let a couple of the chickens out here. The chickens kind of started getting up here scratching and pooping on it, so I assume that maybe it scared them away. But the wildflowers in the cellar are filling in nicely. We have these lupins now everywhere. They kind of just scatter seeds down across. We got daisies up here, chamomile, it's all growing in. Some volunteer raspberries, I have no idea where they came from, but they made their way into the garden. And the garden is actually absolutely beautiful. These peas were started early. They were in May on the row cover. You can see they're pretty heavy down here now. They're weighed down with lots of stuff. Our potatoes are absolutely immense. You know, it's all just fertility, right? So we do our potatoes now in raised beds. We actually just mulch them with dried leaves, and we don't hill them in any way other than just mulch around them with dry leaves once they get kind of 6 to 8 inches high, and that seems to take care of sunburn issues on the potatoes. It makes it actually fairly easy. It doesn't require any equipment anymore. I used to do drills and use a furrower actually on my tiller, but I just got rid, I still have the tiller, but I just got rid of doing that method. It just yeah, it was just really intensive. I didn't see the point anymore, and this works quite well. We just pull the mulch back, and I collect all the leaves and stuff and bring it down and use it for the composter. So this is fennel. Fennel and lettuce were actually outside on the row cover. I think it was the last week of April, and we got great bulbs here. This is our first sowing of fennel, and we've been eating this for about the last 3 weeks, and we got another sowing of fennel, intercropped a bunch of stuff up above. Storage cabbages. I don't know if you remember last year we had a huge issue with clubroot here in the garden. Clubroot moves around, and especially in a small garden, it's pretty hard to control where it goes, because you know the resting spores are on the bottom of your feet. You're moving around all over your garden. Who knows where they are? But I have seen it in a few places. So cabbages this year are a clubroot resistant variety. Can't remember the variety right now, but I'll actually put it down below. It's a great variety. It seems to be doing well. Another row of peas. It's about 25 feet of peas here, and you can see for the most part it's done flowering, and the pea crop is going to be good and heavy this year. And you may notice, compared to last year's update, I have peas, potatoes, onions, roots, brassicas. Peas, potatoes, onions, roots, brassicas. So that's kind of my 5-year rotation now on things. And every year I plan on moving basically everything by one step. Potatoes will actually sit in the same place for 2 years, but because I'm testing whether or not some of the late blight issues that I've had are related to multiple croppings, because I was pretty much only ever doing the potatoes in one area. I think it's going to work out. We'll see how it goes. I brought in a couple different varieties this year that have good tuber blight resistance, from earth apples actually, and I'm hoping that those guys, along with the crop rotation, are going to give me better potatoes. So onions and leeks in a crop with lettuce. This method works great. We multi-sow, as you know. We've done that last year also, and basically, our onions are all sowed in groups of 4 and 5, and as they grow, they just push each other apart. And a distance of about kind of 15 to 18 inches or so between groups of onions. It simplifies plant out. We can get just as many onions or more into the same planting area, and their onions are big, and it's likely because the fertility here is good now. We use very little man-made fertilizers. Most of the fertilizers that we use now are really just animal-based stuff that we get from the chickens, so composted chicken manure. Celeriac, we absolutely love celeriac. You can see these plants are doing good. The giant Prague Dolby variety is actually growing quite a bit bigger than the Mars variety already, and it's just testing whether or not this is a better storage variety. I stored these in a different way last year. It worked out pretty good. For the Mars, they lasted about 8-9 months in the cellar, which I'm quite pleased about. It is a staple for us in the winter, so we need to keep growing it. Brussels sprouts, I think there's probably maybe 12-13 plants there. They're coming along nicely. Quite pleased with that crop also this year, and we plant those about 18 to 24 inches apart, kind of on a diagonal grid. Broad beans. Our broad beans this year are absolutely crazy. They're at least 30 to 36 inches tall, and they're going to be heavy croppers this year. This one tiller has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That one tiller has 8 pods on it, and that's not the number of pods on the plant. So each tiller on average, I've counted, are about 7 to 8 pods per tiller, and most have 3 to 4 tillers. So it's going to be a pretty crazy crop on fava beans this year. Up here, another row of fava beans. So these are actually planted in triple rows on diagonals, and to trellis these, I mean, they don't really need a trellis, they're pretty much self-supporting, but we do have a lot of wind, So you can see I staked the ground and I just tied a string to it, nothing crazy or complicated, and that just helps them kind of stay within when the wind is blowing, and it's gentle enough that it doesn't actually cause any damage on the plant, so it works really well. Our garlic this year looks to be doing really well. We got 3 varieties here. We got Red Russian, Dugansky, and Music. Music always does well here. Our garlic was slow to start. We didn't have much snow cover this winter, but you can see, oh, I have a Newfoundland Heritage here too, which is an interesting variety that I haven't tried before. But you can see the Music. That Music is about 1 inch across on the stalk coming out of the ground. You can see beets, multi-sown, 4 to 5 in a group. This is all spring brassicas. It's all pretty much gone to seed at this point. I put this kind of new raised bed here with a Czech log terrace behind it for black currants. We're getting a little more into the perennial food production, so I've added in a few things like Solomon's seal that actually edible, hostas, that kind of stuff, which I'll show you now in a little while when we get to the upper part of the garden. So let's move on up. I'm not going to take the row cover off our sorghum yet. It's a little cold this morning. It's only about 8 degrees Celsius, which is pretty cold. My hands are actually getting really cold. But I added this bed last year. It's not quite as windy up in this end of the garden. This is a Three Sisters plant out with sorghum, squash, and runner beans, and it seems to be going quite well. I'm actually quite surprised it's doing as well as what it is. I was a little hesitant about trying it, but heck, what do you do? Try it and see what happens. Asparagus, we were eating off of this. So here we are talking about, you know, the perennial food system now. So our asparagus was great this spring. This was the first year harvesting, and it's still coming up, but we're letting everything go to ferns now. But overall, I'm quite pleased. We've been eating off it. Yeah, I'd say pretty much all spring on and off. All right, so catch a breath. Our food forest. Well, I'd say the food forest kind of started last year when I put in the trellis for the kiwis, and I pruned the kiwis back a little above first wire, and exactly what they say should happen. It's after sending off a shoot. That'll be trained along here. This shoot here will be trained upwards, and this one will be trained here, and that one down there will be likely pruned. Up here, same deal. There's 4 more. One's a male. One of them actually lost all of its buds for some reason. We had a couple of late frosts this year, and but they seem to be growing back. Okay, so what do we got up here? Well, this is one of the plant outs in our food forest, and it was more or less about creating a large edge with low growing trees and shrubs here, apple tree up there, and then using this canopy on the back as the canopy for the smaller trees. So we got the plum, some sea buckthorns along the back, a couple apple trees up here. You can see that I'm using these onions everywhere. I mean, they grow really well. The little bulblets on the top are bulbils, and they can actually be pulled and used as onions and pickler onions and stuff. We got some haskaps in here also. Huge amount of like rhubarb down below. So this year I split the crowns. I got 1, 2, 3 crowns off of that guy. We got black currants along the back edge of this row, which won't actually shade any of this back here. And in front of that, we got rhubarb, haskap. We brought in some nitrogen fixers, which are just lupins that I seeded back in the winter, and they're coming in so nicely. We absolutely love these. And some of the flowers on these will be actually harvested for seed, which we'll use to propagate other lupins in other places later on. But some of the plants will just be kind of 30% of them or so will be chopped and dropped and used around mulching around the trees and stuff like that for helping to build fertility. I set up a trellis here for broad beans, or runner beans, sorry. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. It's a little busy here trying to get through all of this. And you can see that, yeah, the runner beans didn't really make it. The slugs killed everything early on in the spring, about 3-4 weeks ago, and I haven't had chance really to deal with it. So interestingly enough, under it, well, it came up Jerusalem artichokes that I planted last year, and I thought that I actually got all of them, and apparently you never get all of them, so that's fine. They'll grow there, and they're actually a nice kind of backdrop to the other things that we have. Eventually some of this stuff in here will be shaded out by some Saskatoon berries that I've planted. You'll see that there's some hostas. These I actually got from my mom's garden. She actually split her crowns and gave them to me, and they're kind of on that outer edge, and you know, hostas are a great perennial food source, and most of it is kind of paired with things like lupins and whatnot that help provide some fertility as you chop and drop them. And then up behind this apple tree up here, once again, we got some of these sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes growing, and they all perform, you know, kind of a nice high hedge back here against this nitrogen fixer, which is an alder. That just grew there naturally, by the way. Didn't plant that. You don't need to plant alders in Newfoundland. They come in all on their own. Herb garden from last year, using herbs that we mainly use on a daily or weekly basis. We got oregano, sage, beautiful flowers here. They attract pollinators like you wouldn't believe. Huge patch of winter savory along with mint. And then I started planting in kind of some annual stuff like dill, you know, dill and cilantro, and just things that we use fresh, you know, just using up space in the garden. All right, let's move over to this area here. So some of the walkways around the house, you know, walkways are a pain because you put down a weed barrier because you think it's a great idea, and then you put, you know, stone in it, but of course plants can still grow down through it. Like, the weed barrier doesn't do anything because the plants grow on top of it. And then I started looking at it. I said, well, the problem is not that I need to weed the walkway. The problem is that I don't have enough plants, because they obviously can grow well in these locations. So to kind of, you know, battle the problem of, you know, weeding the walkways, I decided that, you know, that I wasn't going to fool with that anymore. And I was going to do a, you know, kind of more of a permaculture based plant out. So back here, we got a high bush cranberry. There's some comfrey in here, lupins once again for chop and drop. Some annual herbs, dill, that stuff. We got perennial lovage in the back. We got some bee balm, which is a great pollinator attractor, and you know, makes great tea and that kind of stuff also. Some sage, lemon balm, and some blackberry canes that actually I end up getting from somebody. They're coming in nicely. Likewise over here we got some blackberry canes, triple crown, there's a bunch of other ones, and the plan is that I'm going to make a trellis off the deck. It's going to come along here, and I'm going to kind of train them espalier style, and you know, they'd be a little bit easier for me to take care of and harvest off of, is kind of the plan. So yeah, a lot of work. All of this is done by hand. I don't have a tractor. It's all moved. It's like all the dirt, all that stuff is all done with a shovel and a, you know, this is a lot of work. But you know, the payback is very long term, so it is there. It's just waiting for the payback. Okay, this is actually one of my favorite areas of kind of that food forest border, because a lot of the, you know, the canopy trees here, you know, in our kind of boreal setting are all black spruce, and you can see they're all fairly big. Most of them are, you know, probably 25-30 feet tall. And amazingly, on the north side of, we're actually on the north side of the house now, which is really interesting because you still see the sun, but the sun in the summertime rises so far to the northeast that you get a large amount of summer sun in the morning, and you get kind of a good bit in the evening also. And this area here, although it's shaded right now, it actually gets a solid kind of 8 to 10 hours of sunlight per day in the summertime. So, but it gets enough shade that things like hostas actually do really well. Hostas are a great perennial food source. I've never tasted them, but I've heard people say that they're actually quite good. And besides that, we got some loosestrife in here. This stuff back here actually is goldenrod. The goldenrod actually it was just naturalized here, and I kind of just let it go. We got a plum tree here, and that actually needs a pollinator, so we got a plum cot over here for that pollinator on that one. Nitrogen fixer here, which is our gummy berry, and we got these kind of scattered throughout because they can be used eventually for chop and drop, and they can help build kind of fertility local to that area. And you can see that sun, like, so that over there is the northeast. Actually, it's further north than the northeast, and it's still lots of sun. Lupins, we got lovage growing. We got the comfrey, some black currant. Yeah, all this stuff kind of gonna fill in and eventually be little guilds. And I do have plans for more things that I need to add in, but it's been such a crazy spring that I haven't really had a chance to do any more with it. I'll probably divert most of it to next spring instead. Crimson cherry, gummy berry. Out here we got a Chinese American hybrid chestnut, and that guy's coming in pretty nicely. I'm actually quite pleased. Oh, we're watching for the comfrey. So here it is here, and over here we got a nitrogen fixer, which is can't remember that one. I'm gonna have to remember what that one is later because we need to move on. This is a sea berry. I was a little worried it wasn't gonna come in because it looked like it was dying, but lo and behold, it is alive and it is coming now. Over in this section of the food forest, it's still pretty sparse. I mean, it's going to take some time to start building some of these layers, but the main species are in. Along this northern edge here, it gets quite a bit of summer sun. You can see that these guys are getting pretty high, but as a lot of these evergreens grow high, the branches down below start to die back, and the north wind out here sweeps down through and under these trees, and it's quite cold and windy in the spring. So I'm going to build up basically a thicket along the front. So right here we got a lilac, we got some cargana, and we got some buffalo berries over here. And they're only so tiny you can't even see them on the camera right now, but the sea berries we can see. And we got a male here, this is Lord, and we got a female, Troskaya, I think, is over here. And these guys are going to help form a guild with this chestnut, which is going to get probably fairly large, but my plan is to keep it pruned. And then we had lots of volunteer white spruces, or black spruces I mean, out here last year, that came from this row here, just seeds being scattered by the wind. And they're actually doing really, really well compared to what they were last year. But you see that I've mulched them, which chokes out the grass. And yeah, like this year alone, that little tree is put on 4 inches, which is probably at least a third of its height. And it's not finished growing for the season yet, so it's actually doing quite well. All right, let's move to the next area. Next planted area is doing pretty good too. We got a flowering crab. I think this is a cur crab apple right here. These were all bare root, by the way. They're all doing pretty good. There it is. Over right here, right here, we have a apple tree. It's a freedom apple. Autumn olive. People think that these autumn olives are horrible. They're nitrogen fixing trees. You can chop back maybe 30% of them a year, probably even more, and use them for chop and drop until the other trees, root systems kind of get intertangled with them, and then it'll probably be a little less work. Along here I planted a black spruce border. This area here is really just an access road to get to the coop, and you know, it's probably going to take maybe 20 or 30 years probably for these spruces to get big enough that it's going to encroach in here on this walkway. But by that time, hopefully some of the trees down below over here will actually be high enough that we'll have windbreak. Really, this is meant to be kind of a 6 to 8 foot windbreak that'll help this area right here. And then you see how those trees, like I said, they're a little bare on the bottom. That the north wind coming through there will hopefully be protected a little more by that thicket that's going to be out along the outside northern edge. Here in this area, lost a few things. Seaberry died. We got an elderberry that got eaten off by slugs. It was really tiny anyway. I was a little displeased with that particular one. Goomyberry, hazelnut didn't look to be doing too good, but it's actually putting on some growth down below now, so I'm quite happy with that one. And then over here, gummy berries, some buffalo berries on the back. You see this we lost a whole bunch of trees back here, so I'm trying to build up a thicket again. And over beyond there's some pear trees, which, well, I'm not gonna get over there and show you those right now. But the windbreak, let's talk about, you know, the windbreak plant out. You know, our average wind speed here throughout the year is about 7.5 meters a second. It's a lot of wind. And you know, it's easy for things to get decimated, and you know, the garden, things like annual vegetables, that they're not woody kind of perennial type vegetables, you know, they're just more succulent, I guess, so they tend to get decimated by wind. So you're constantly trying to find ways to protect them, and row covers work okay as long as they're supported with hoops earlier on until the plants get high enough. But really, you need a permanent kind of, you know, I guess, solution to that problem. And I think the permanent solution to that problem is a shelter belt. And luckily, I'd been talking to one of the neighbors. And this area here, I'm actually on the neighbor's property right now. I think I've crossed over that line yet. And it was cleared, and kind of unknowingly, I don't think at the time he didn't really think about what he was going to use it for, but now he realizes he's not going to use this area. And it's unfortunate it was cleared, because there's some beautiful, you know, little forest groves here with bunchberries and things like that for birds. We got some wallflowers here, and you know, it's starting to fill in with lots of wild vegetation, as you can see, compared to what it was, let's say, you know, 10 years ago. And down below we got lots of daisies and stuff, and it's actually quite nice. But you know, there's a couple of open corridors directly into the garden, so I decided this year to plant out a shelter belt down here with his permission. And you can see all the stakes, right? And the stakes back here, they all follow, there's two lines, they're about 10-15 feet apart, and there's basically a plant out of you know, a nitrogen fixer, we got Saskatoon, Western chokecherry. Sorry, I might have messed that up. I might have messed that up. Sorry. It's yeah. So it's a nitrogen fixer. So the nitrogen fixer is either Cargana or sea buckthorn, and then it's Saskatoon, Western chokecherry, Cargana. So Cargana, Western chokecherry, Saskatoon, seaberry, and that follows all the way along. I think that's for yeah, there's supposed to be 5 in a row. Anyway, whatever the case, there's 30 trees planted along here. They're all about 3 feet apart. They're actually growing quite well. This has put on about 8 inches of growth so far this year alone. It's been quite dry, and we did have some rain. The seaberries are just coming in there now. It's taken them a long time to get going, but it's been a dry spring despite the fact that I've been trying to water them immensely. You know, it's just, the water's just not penetrating, but we did have some good rain the other day. So that goes around kind of 80-90 feet in that direction. So there's quite a few trees there. And then in the second line, it was about, you know, choosing trees that I knew could be cut down and that they would turn into kind of a coppice off the stool. So we have these guys, which are a sharp leaf willow, and that's grown actually quite a bit. I'd say this guy's probably put on, all the branches are at least kind of 3 to 4 inches, and it's going to grow more. So that guy's doing good. We got a Okanese poplar, these guys are coming in, and a green ash. So it keeps following that. It's now, yeah, so it's back to willow, Okanese poplar, green ash, and that keeps on going until we get up to the end. And then back another row basically then are my evergreens. So my evergreens are up here. So it's really kind of a 3-row shelter belt with you know, thicket, then large deciduous trees, which every probably 5 or 6 years I'll probably partially cut them down and use some of the wood for firewood and let them coppice and kind of fill in that way. Although I need to come up with maybe a better management plan, we'll see. And then my row of evergreens. But see, there's this corridor here that's completely open. Wind just blasts through it. This will help. And then likewise over here, you see there's this corridor, once again, that goes right on through. So that'll hopefully help. And then over here at the back edge of the property is the same thing. There's this corridor. So there's been a couple plants put in here, and you can see there's actually kind of a grove here, or a stand of spruces, and every year I've been actively just coming in and cutting some of them because there's just way too many. There's no way that they'll all grow. And you see when you cut them and you thin them out, look, this guy's put on about 6 inches this year so far, 6 to 8 inches, and these over here have only put on around 2 to 3. I mean, they're competing for nutrients, right? This year we decided to have a go at planting some oats. Unfortunately, I tilled the ground and didn't tarp it, which I probably should have, because now I have hay grown in the oats. But luckily one of our viewers that I conversed back and forth with somewhat has told me that, yeah, that a lot of these hay seed will just winnow right out. It's been a dry spring, so the oats have been slow coming in, but I checked a couple days ago and the panicles are making their way up through the grass stalk. So just a matter of time there now before that turns into an oat field. That's AC Gel. It's a variety of hulless oat. There it is there, all in a backyard. Quite a bit of stuff. Anyway, crazy amount of stuff. So you can see why it's been, you know, a long time since the last video. We've been quite busy, and you know, that and navigating, you know, the openings and all that stuff from COVID and working, it's been difficult. We've also been managing the garlic farm, which actually I'm heading to now. Today it's July the 9th. Anyway, it's scape picking day today, so we have to pick scapes from our porcelains today. So it's a lot on the go, but we're getting through it, and you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. Anyway, if you guys have any comments, you know, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And you know, thanks for bearing with us. It's been a while since the last video, but there will be more coming. It's just been quite a busy spring. Anyway, once again, thanks for joining us. We're here at the homestead at Flat Rock. I'm heading up to the garlic farm. Lots of other things to do today. We will see you next time.